So you just came back from a road trip.
I did. Yeah, Las Vegas.
Viva Las Vegas.
I was actually singing that as I was driving in.
Yeah, this is a whole
It's hot
Elvis
as
thing.
shit out there.
Well, Vegas is so fun now because it went from, like Cher and Elvis Presley and all these big shows, and then the Mafia's out, I think, for the most part.
Tiesto's in.
Yeah, now it's all EDM. Like everything is clubs and.
I'm pretty sure Tiesto at like the Marriott or whatever it was is like the resident DJ.
Yeah, they have that now. Yeah, they have resident DJs. So, why were you in Vegas?
I was picking up a camper van
Mm.
at National Indoor RV Center. Shout out to them. Thing's pretty nice. It's huge. It takes up 3 or 4 parking spots. I already showed you a picture of it.
Yeah, it's like a Mercedes Winnebago thing.
Mercedes Sprinter 3800 or something XD 4x4 lifted dually.
So let me ask you a question. Is HDL going on the road?
HDL is
Part of HDL is going on the road.
HDL is going mobile.
Yeah, so we'll be doing a lot of you in a amazing backdrop, and then me at the studio.
Yeah.
We'll be using technology. And what's one of the technologies you just got that's exciting?
We got the Starlink.
Yes.
So we got Tesla's Starlink. So it doesn't matter where we are in the world, we'll have satellite internet.
Isn't that crazy?
$3 a day.
Yeah, he's like, let me do satellites, launch them. Let me do solar panels. Let me build an electric car. Let me do tunnels underground.
Yeah.
What else is he doing? He's got so many companies.
He's on it.
Yeah, he's on it. Yeah. So,
by the way, I just want to state again, it was 108 degrees in Las Vegas. Way too hot. The climate of Las Vegas has changed since the 60s. They started this initiative in the 60s to start planting tons of trees and try and green up Vegas. Well, they have greened it up. It's when you come over the mountains and you're like, oh my goodness, like why are all these trees out here? It's humid and very hot and very buggy. It's become more hot and more humid over time because of all the trees they planted.
oh, so yeah, because they're not indigenous to that area.
No, you got.
Well, you get how much
palms
water
and
do you
everything else.
have? You know, I mean, like Vegas, those big fountains,
Well, it's
Bellagio.
just sucking
I mean-
water from Lake Mead,
Oh yeah,
which is enormous, man-made. Like,
it's
the
like-
second largest.
I've
Actually.
never understood, why you don't just embrace the land that you're in. I mean, I get AC, air conditioning,
Dude,
and all
this
that
is
stuff. But
this is toxic masculinity.
yeah, that's what it is. Let's control.
Let's control nature.
Yeah, go to Saudi Arabia and look at those places. They got lawns, green lawns.
Should
in
not
the desert.
exist.
Yeah,
Should not exist.
they're like pumping in topsoil from,
it's dry and
France.
arid there because Earth chose to be dry and arid there.
and you should live dry and arid.
Yeah, if you want to live there.
Yeah, it's like here they have that zero escape, which is cool. Like you can choose to do that in your yard.
Oh, that fake grass.
No. It's so basically what it is, and you can go online. City of Albuquerque has a big website on it too, which is really neat. So you can only use drip irrigation, and you can only plant native species.
That's what we have outside here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got all that drip irrigate. Those little things.
Yeah,
Right
so
out
it
of the
barely, but you don't have to run it very much because they're
native.
Imagine they're native trees and native species.
Why wouldn't
So
you only plant
what
native
happens?
stuff? Like I'm in Las Vegas. I'm like, why are there all these palm trees here?
Well, you can't even put a palm here because the altitude's too high, I think.
Yeah,
They don't grow well here.
nuts.
So it's like, but it is. It's toxic masculinity is what it is.
Yeah,
It's controlling.
that's all it is. There's nothing else
And
to
guess
it.
what happens whenever you try to do that?
Oh, Mother Nature kicks you in the fucking face.
In one of our sponsors, Tartle.co, you can go to Spotify, Apple, YouTube,
Deezer.
Tcast. Yeah, Deezer for those in Germany. Tcast by Tartle. Type that in. And we just did an episode. It was amazing with that British Columbia forestry gal.
Yeah,
that
Suzanne Simard, Finding the Mother Tree.
And if you want to know about what can happen, especially with like the logging industry and this mono logging.
And how you're like, yeah, it couldn't possibly be that bad cutting down trees. Well, you'd actually be quite surprised what happens when you clear cut trees.
And she's not opposed to logging, which is yeah. So I mean, certain like old growth forests we should leave alone and stuff like that. But
like me, I'm not opposed to GMOs.
yeah, which is
People
interesting.
be like,
yeah, we
what
did a whole podcast on that.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, genetically modified. What are we?
Yeah.
We have the biggest cucumbers known to man.
Perfect. More cuke for the buck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially when it comes to, this is interesting. So we're at the most prosperous time in the world's history.
Why are we so depressed?
Well, not only the mental aspect, but it's like, have you ever been in a Mazda RX-7, the old ones with the rotary engines?
Oh, yeah, on top, too. They still race them in prototypes.
Yeah, so but
they
they're
rev really high.
Yeah, you can be at 9,000 RPMs, no issues.
So cool.
Yeah, they have there's a guy in Seattle that works on aviation engines. It's the same principle.
Correct.
And so he spools them up to like 15,000 RPMs and stuff like that.
Love
So
the
it's
way
like,
that sounds. I love the way that sounds.
and yeah, it's crazy. They're on YouTube, but I feel like that's where we're at. We're at that highest RPMs that you can be at, and our economies throughout the world is just, you know, and it's gonna go like they're not known for reliability.
Yeah,
their engines.
No, they're not. They're just short bursts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's like any type of
too much friction.
Aircraft engines with high RPM, you have to constantly work on them.
Too fast, too much friction.
Yeah, it's just what it is. But it's amazing to me when we look at extraterrestrials and we look at the messages of, you know, positive oriented extraterrestrials, how that their concern, all of them, is the way that we're treating this planet.
Yeah, because the way you treat your planet is how you treat yourselves. If you can't respect the planet, how are you supposed to respect human beings? You can't, right? And our focus is on economies completely artificially created, artificially inflated, artificially stable. They have no solid foundation. Our understandings of one another don't have a solid foundation. Why do you think we go to war all the time? Our borders are artificial. We live in an artificial world. It's so sterile.
A matrix that we've created.
It's literally one we've created.
It's a false reality.
Yeah, it's absolutely false. There's nothing about it. The only thing true about it is the fact that we have illusioned ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only truism, is that we took our free will and drove ourselves away from where we should be.
Yeah, fiat currency is an illusion. It's something we've all agreed on. Hey, yeah, the dollar is expensive. So speaking of extraterrestrials speaking to mankind with an urgent message, we're on chapter 5 of the White Sands Incident by Dr. Daniel W. McFry. I call him McFry, McDonald's fries, but no, his French fries. So on April 28th, 1954, reading the book, page 63, Alan established direct contact with me for the third time. A sense of urgency went in his tone, and his words impressed in a way which I had not experienced in our previous discussions. He explained that with my background in research, science, lecturing, and teaching, I was well qualified to follow through on his suggestions. This is what he said. You have a personal duty and responsibility to cooperate in the efforts our people are making to help you people on Earth to alter their present flow of events. So I want people to understand, this is 1954. That he's saying you have an urgent message.
And then he comes back, or is it the 60s he came back? Or is it 54?
Yeah, he said on April 28th, 1954.
Okay, yeah. So 5 years after he actually went up in the craft, Alan comes back to have a conversation with him. My question is, who defined the duty? Was it self-defined, self-proclaimed by Dr. Fry in his own mind, and they were just reading those thoughts? Did he have his thoughts like, I'm going to do this. I need to do this. This is my duty.
Right.
It's my duty to mankind. And then he's just coming and reframing it. There's a little bit of a gap. What's happened in those past 5 years? The amount of thoughts someone may have, right? And they're like, this is something I want to continue.
Well, evolution too, after he made first contact, how much is Dr. Fry evolving?
So much.
Yes.
What is your duty then? Your duty is always to evolve. It's the most human thing you can do. And for you to evolve, it's also by helping others. It's a very service to others approach. And because they know that's the most beneficial way to do it. So how do they proceed after they make this comment?
Well, he said a complete report of the first spacecraft landing at the White Sands Proving Grounds. And then he said, I was reluctant to do so because I felt it would be impossible to persuade any significant number of persons that the event had actually occurred.
This is exactly the same thing that Don Elkins said in the raw material.
Yes.
He's like, well, how do I get this out to the most amount of people? How do we persuade them? Ross said, that really doesn't matter. He said what matters is that you put it out there.
And
if you change one person's mind, then you've actually achieved the most important task ever.
It's so funny, and this is gurus do this, and we've talked about this 100 times, but it's very important to understand. Somebody gets excited because they have a message. And then it's like, how can I impose on people's free wills? Because this is the truth.
Yes.
And then everybody, like Raw and all them are like, and Elon is like,
just write it.
Just put it out there.
Who cares?
And then the message lands on where it needs to land.
Billy Meyer material? Was he going out like screaming from the rooftops? No, the guy's got one arm.
Yeah.
He like doesn't even talk that loud.
Yeah.
He's sitting around. He's old. He's got a big gut, big beard, glasses. Nothing evangelical about him. Frankly, he doesn't even like to talk to people. He's like, yeah, whatever. If you come up and ask him about it, honestly, he'll chat with you. But he is in no way, shape, or form is he being evangelical. They don't push anything, nothing. Do you see any of their books on Amazon? No?
Yeah, exactly.
You have to go to Switzerland to buy them. Do you know how much it cost me to get those books? There's nothing easy about it.
No.
That's a very important part. You can't, because when you do that, you start proselytizing or whatever it might be evangelical. You start to create an ideology out of it. And then you start to create separation by forcing people to adopt it. And if they don't, they're not good, whatever it might be. The same thing happened with the church, right? I'm going to come in with the Bible to these native people. Oh, you're worshiping a totem? No, absolutely not. That's wrong.
Well, any of it. You could do that with the raw material. You could do like, if you don't believe the raw material,
correct.
Then, you're false. You're wrong.
I came across this raw stuff by accident.
Yeah.
And even Ross said, like, do not push this out here. All that matters is that you write it and leave it alone. And again, it's a nonprofit. You go to their website and you can buy it.
Yeah, they also, LO Research has all the books for PDF.
They're all for free.
Yeah.
It's not about making the money. It's about having the message there so that it can be found by those who want to find it.
Yeah, and it goes right into this. He says this in the book. Most of the members of the human race upon this planet have been reared to believe that the men on Earth are the supreme product of the universe, as well as the principal reason for its creation.
So let's slow down here. Their word choice is so specific. Read the first couple words again.
Most of the members of the human race upon this planet.
Bang. Stop right there. See the difference?
Yeah.
Now that you reread it, most of the members of the human race upon this planet.
Yeah, there's so many other planets with
there are multiple other planets with many human races. Oh, interesting. Very good.
But, with our religion, even it's so funny. You'll talk to leading scientists and a lot of them say, well, there's no proof, so there's nothing out there, so we're, as far as I know, we're it. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah. Joe Rogan was on, he was on Joe Rogan the other day, and Joe Rogan was pushing him on the alien thing. And he's like, with all the cameras that are out there, I haven't seen any like hardcore evidence. He's just like, there's this whole mentality. But it's so funny because there's a common ground that scientists and religious people have in common, which is so funny because they've hate each other since medieval times.
Yeah, but they run the same.
But they run the same dogma about we're the only people on the planet
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just about you right here, nothing else.
Yeah.
Okay, good for you. What happens when you close off these probabilities? Then you never see anything. Nothing is ever learned. You have to be open to all. What are you talking about? There's no evidence. Bro, you haven't even looked.
Take us.
Oh, you and me?
Take the human race on Earth and take it 2 million years from now if we survive and see how evolved we would be. And our technologies 2 million years from now. Think about technology we have now. Take it 2 million years and see how evolved we'd be if we survive. And then turn around and tell me that another human race that's 2 million years ahead of us would not be able to have stealth technology where we're not going to see that they're hanging out or around.
We have stealth technology in our jets.
I know.
We have that. Remember that blanket thing in Harry Potter that makes them invisible? The Canadians developed that. That's a legitimate thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, what makes you think we couldn't be 2 million years from now floating around completely invisible?
So to think that
foolishness.
And if they're highly evolved, And the book talks about this because they're saying, he says, and in their minds, those of us on Earth would be placed one step down on the ladder of evolution. So instead of us thinking that we're the superior beings in the universe and everything else is either, whether it's carbon based or whatever it's
all
based off of.
microorganisms.
Yeah. But it's not as evolved as us.
Of course not. Of course not. Talk about a freaking ego check when an extraterrestrial is walking around and they look just like you.
But like have so much more information.
And he looks at you and he's like, I'm 2 million years more advanced. Could you imagine walking around on this planet amongst other humans and you meet one that's 2 million years genetically and spiritually ahead of you? You couldn't reconcile it, frankly. You'd be like,
I would just be, for me personally, I would have humility and get into learning mode.
I would be like, would you mind coming over for dinner for the next 5 years straight? So we can talk.
How much can I learn from you?
Yeah.
And I'll be quiet and listen.
Yeah, I will
because
not say
every word that you say is going to be intentional.
That's all I want to hear.
Yeah.
Why would you sit here and just like waste time? You know how valuable these things are. Gosh.
Yeah, and he was even worried about it. And this is 1954. He said this, Dr. Fry, I felt that if I were to attempt to furnish such evidence as fact, I might lose the professional standing, which I had worked so hard to acquire during my years of study and research.
Here's what's ridiculous.
In the field of engineering.
Thank you for saying that. Remember in the beginning, he said after the event happened, he realized like how his work is really just so pointless with the rocket engines. And he's like, it doesn't mean anything. And then 5 years later, his outlook has obviously changed where his ego kicks in again. He's like, I can't risk what I'm doing.
Friends, he says this, friends, family.
You told us 5 years ago. You're like, this stuff's all meaningless. But now you're backing down because you're worried about your fucking career?
Yeah.
Like, get out of here. Spineless.
Yeah, and then, well, it's also, this begins to, and you can understand why they don't give information, because this begins to play on your psyche and in the sense of, it's like rejection.
Yeah.
People are not going to accept my message, and I'm going to be ridiculed and rejected. Friends and family are going to think I'm crazy. Yep. I went on a spacecraft. I got this information. My work is going to suffer. And then he even said it, the years and years and years that I put into this false reality.
Yeah.
That false reality could be taken away from me.
Oh, no. You're so attached to this illusion. You and I are fucking weird. Aren't we?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Everything we do, all of our work follows these natural things. You can't, okay, talk shit about us.
But to be able to know that you're trying your best to walk in truth is reassuring enough.
It's my favorite thing. I'll get ridiculed all day for being truthful.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Ridicule me all day for being truthful.
And speaking of truth, he says this, because he comes to the realization. He says, the truth is, I was in possession of scientific information which could be more valuable and helpful to the world than I alone would ever be. Once I realized this, I felt I had no right to continue to conceal this information simply because I was afraid of what might happen to me as a result of its publication.
Once he realized, not once he was told, but once he had his own internal realization. But what was required, Jason? A very negative catalyst of thought brought into self-awareness, equalized, and then turned into a positive learning catalyst, creating action. That whole process right there is a phenomenal process, that bridge he just made.
Yeah. And it's so funny. He goes into the woods in a tree area. He's in Southern Oregon.
Southern Oregon, yeah.
Yeah, in a small dirt road. And so finally he's out there, and Alan's voice comes out of the silence, interrupts him, and uses a Jesus parable, which I think is funny.
I would shit myself.
He says, well, Dan, how much longer are you going to hide your light under a bushel? And Jesus talked about this in a parable where, you have light, and then people, they take a bushel is the baskets that they would use.
Yeah.
So it's like a candle, and then you put this big basket over it. And then Jesus was saying, let your light shine before men.
Well, yeah.
Because we all have a certain light that we can display.
Knowledge.
But then we hide it, under our ego, under our fears.
Yeah. Crush truth.
Yes.
But he's also using, first of all, he talks in the same nomenclature that Fry uses.
Yeah.
It's 1950s. He knows exactly what to talk to him because Fry's probably still going to church.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Or religious. Yeah.
Considering what, frankly, like going for that ride, I'd be like, what's the point of church?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm going to church and I'm working on rockets.
So I work on things that make nukes move faster back and forth, but I go to church and I pray to God. Oh, by the way, I got picked up by an extraterrestrial craft.
Right.
Obviously, he's going to meet him and catch his attention with something he's very emotionally attuned to, and that's this essentially this religious quote. It's the same thing that, like you said, Jesus would do. He would meet people where they are. If you don't do that, you lose them. So he knows exactly from a psychological stance what words will trigger him to be like, oh, you know something, you're right. Thank you for reinforcing.
Yeah, and then, well, he goes into it. Excuse me.
And cigarettes.
Yeah, Elon, this is 1950s, but Elon said this, in your great book of wisdom and philosophy, which you call the Bible. So he calls it a book of wisdom and philosophy, and that's how all spiritual teaching should be looked at.
He said, in whose book?
Yeah, in your
book.
Yeah, so if you look at it, if you look at spiritual teachings as wisdom and philosophy, not as defiant truth.
This is it. This is the absolute.
Yeah, so he gets into, and this is interesting, he gets into this. He says, there are people everywhere who are searching for the truth. And they will recognize the value of the message regardless of who the messenger may be.
Remember I said that?
Yeah.
I said all that matters is that it's out there, and the people who are searching for it and find it will find it. Like the raw material, I was researching the IRS. How the heck does research on the IRS and then fiat currency lead me over to that? Lo and behold, it does. What I was doing was I was looking for truth around, economies and finance. And I find myself in a channeled material from some people in Kentucky. And then where does that lead? Oh, Billy Edward Albert Meyer, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
Well, let's go check that. Oh, this is really, Dr. Daniel W. Fry, who's that? It's just one after another. You just continue to search and search and search, and you got to pick the things out.
Society, though. I mean, any great artist, any great creative person, you can go down through the list, and they were all ridiculed in the beginning.
Every single one of them.
Yeah, and he even talks about that. Elon says this, ridicule is the barrier which those who are ignorant will erect between themselves and any truth which frightens or disturbs them.
I love that. There's a quick quote that matches with that. The truth at all times is unpopular.
Yes.
The truth is at all times unpopular. The vast majority don't want to hear it. Like, even remember we had that free speech guy come on, Zimmerman?
Yes.
Nobody wants to hear the truth.
No.
Ever. They have no interest in it. It's too jarring for them. They put up a barrier. They cancel you. That's what that's all about.
It's so easy just to shut the truth up.
All the time.
That's what they try to do.
Shutting the truth up is shutting you up. It shuts up your evolution. Lucky you. Good for you. Keep it up.
He said, there is an old saying which I believe should be the opening statement of every book of philosophy. It is easier to ridicule than to investigate, but it can never be as profitable.
Oh, it's great. Did I underline that? What a great line. I don't even have to. I can't say any better than that.
And he said, remember also that you have friends, more friends than you realize, and many new friends will come to you. While it is true that many people fear anything which might change their way of life, there are many others who understand the critical problems that exist in your civilization.
Yeah.
And they are searching earnestly and diligently for a remedy.
Yeah.
It's the same people that our podcast keeps. Last month, it grew bigger than the month before. And the month before, it grew bigger than the month before. There's a reason why it's snowballing.
They just keep searching. And then they share and like, hey, have you heard about this?
Yes.
I got a call from one of my family members. Oh, by the way, we listened to all your Turtlecasts. I'm like, what? Really? And then they're like, we also just signed up for your yoga one too. And in my mind, I laughed in my mind, right? But even through that sort of perception, I'm like, that's fantastic. I never asked. Completely unsolicited. People just willing and wanting to know more, even though there's someone localized to me. It's just, that's what it is.
Yeah, and I when I read this part, I was thinking of our listeners, each and every one of you that are listening to this. And he said this,
everybody, by the way.
Yeah, he said, don't forget what I have told you about the power of thought. When you have friends, which I consider our listeners to be, when you have friends, you are never alone no matter where you may be. Every mind that is for you will remain with you and respect you. And these additional friends will give you added courage and the ability to overcome any problems that may arise.
Same thing Ra said, but Ra put a spiritual mathematics to it. They call it the law of squares or law of doubling. And it deals with when you take thought impulses and bring them together with a specific focus, you essentially square the resonance in like power. So even if you bring one other person, Like if I was just sitting here, you were just sitting here, Jason, on the microphone, talking all day long, be great. But then I joined you. We've doubled the thought power.
Yes.
Now we have another listener, or the people that do our post-production. They're listening. So now we've also doubled again with the amount of people that they're also joining, thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they're thinking about it, the other ones that sign up and listen to this podcast, they're all thinking about it. So now these messages begin to reinforce people that continue to just search for truth all the time, to take that light from underneath that bushel, or however you want to call it. And then we're all coming in and then creating this resonance of thought, which happens all the time, these impulses, strictly around this free will, creational, natural-driven podcast to help people evolve within themselves through no force, no nothing. It's all on their own accord. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it's the simplest message.
And everybody listens to this. As you listen, even if you don't know the other listeners, you're actually helping support them in their journey by listening to this.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. The next part of the book, he goes into a question that every human here on Earth asks extraterrestrials. And we'll close out in this because I know we're getting close to the time. He said Dr. Fry is telling Elon, he says this, "It has been more than 4 years since you first contacted me. By now you should be completely adapted to our environment. Why don't you set your craft down on the White House lawn some morning, ask for worldwide communication facilities, and give the whole world your message at once?" You know, that's the question that man has said to, like, well, if they're real, why don't they just come down to the White House, you know, and meet the president? One, why do they have to come to the White House and meet the president?
And why
in their mind, they're like, the president is...
He's nobody.
Yeah.
And why the White House? What about all the other countries?
Yeah.
Is the epicenter of the world the United States? Not a chance. And why? And he said, use telecommunication or whatever it is, communication networks. Are you kidding me? He's using telepathy to your brain. They don't need to use your material things. They can use...
Yeah, we need to make sure we have ABC, NBC, and CBS, and Fox, and CNN there. That is the only way we're going to communicate.
Oh, my God.
He said, and Elon says, if you think a little, you'll see that there are many reasons, both general and specific, why such a course would not be successful. If you think a little bit. Just think a little bit.
Just think it through a little bit, all right?
Yeah, and so he gives these, and we'll close out. He says, in the first place, there is the psychological aspect. If we were to appear as members of a superior race coming from above to lead the people of your world, we would seriously disrupt the ego balance of your civilization.
The ego what?
Balance.
Oh, ego balance. Because we think we're all high and mighty, huh?
Yes, yeah.
And we think our religions are high and mighty.
It's too disruptive right off the bat.
Dude,
it
the
would
amount
cause...
of people that even follow what's going on in the Vatican and stuff like that, wars break out, it'd be instantaneous war. We'd be killing ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we're all like, oh my gosh, look at this, blah, blah, blah. Like, it'd be a mess.
Yeah, and then we'd start worshiping everything else. Tens of millions of your people, in their desperate need to avoid being demoted to second place in the universe, would go to any conceivable insights and links to disapprove or deny our existence. If we took steps to force the realization of our reality upon their consciousness, then about 30% of these people would insist upon considering us as gods and would attempt to place upon us all responsibility for their own welfare. So it's like we don't go against people's free will.
No, and
so 30% of the that's funny he uses a percentage.
Yeah.
30% of the globe is going to say you're a god.
Yeah.
I think that would happen now.
Yeah. 2.1
in
billion.
2021.
2.1 billion be like, yeah, I'm not fucking working anymore. You know how many people quit their jobs? Dude, things would stop.
I think it's probably 50-60% now.
But shit would stop.
Because I don't think we would do what he's saying. The other 70% would think we're tyrants, we're taking over the world, perceive it as a threat. So I bet it's probably, what do you think, 50-50 now? 50% of people would worship him as God, and the other 50 would say, I think they're trying to take over.
Yeah, I think all the QAnon people say they're taking over.
Yeah.
And then everybody else would worship them as God.
And the governments would think the take over tyranny part.
Can we think about something? They flew here in interdimensional craft. Don't you think they could have taken it over in like 0.5 seconds? Why would they wait? Why would they be floating around talking to you? If they wanted to take it over, they would just do it. Why do people think such stupid, short, like inflexible line of reasoning?
Yes. This is really good. And we'll end in this quote. He said this in the book. If any great and lasting good is to come from our efforts, The actual leaders must be your own people, or it must come from men who are indistinguishable from them.